Alright guys, it is now time for my week 2 picks of the 2024 NFL season, as last week I went 13-3. What a great start to the year for me and such. That's like one of the best in a while. And of course, here is the regular season, the playoff standings of the season end today. In the AFC, it's the Chargers with the bye, with Bills at Dolphins, Patriots at Texans, and Chiefs at Steelers. And the NFC, it's the Saints with the bye, with Bears at Vikings, Lions at Eagles, and Buccaneers at 49ers. And my Super Bowl prediction right now is the Chiefs over the 49ers. Alright, so now, let's get to our Week 2 picks. Start off with Thursday night tonight. A huge matchup with the AFC East lead on the line, as it's the Bills at the Dolphins. As the Bills won the last 3, the Dolphins haven't beaten them since 2022. The Bills are trying to go 2-0 for the first time since 2022, and the Dolphins are trying to go 2-0 for the third year in a row. So the Bills, of course, oh boy, barely beat the Cardinals. They actually almost got upset by them. That was pretty embarrassing, but they got the job done in the end, so they still have a win. Meanwhile, the Dolphins also had to pull off another comeback on their own, as, oh boy, barely beating the Jaguars and such. Oh man, that was really close. So, this one will be very close. The Bills swept them last year. And stat-wise, the Dolphins seem more balanced right now, but of course it is just one game though, and such. Oh boy, this is a tough one, but I think I'll just pick the Dolphins, but I wouldn't be surprised if the Bills win. And now we get to our Sunday games, starting off with the Raiders at the Ravens for the first time since 2018. As the Raiders won the last one, the Ravens haven't beaten them since that 2018 game, and the Raiders haven't won in Baltimore since 2016. As the Raiders try to avoid 0-2 for the first time since 2022, and the Ravens are trying to avoid 0-2 for the first time since 2015. So the Raiders lost to Chargers, not really much surprised in all that. Meanwhile, the Ravens lost to Chiefs, which I'm not surprised about, but their offense, especially Lamar, I felt outplayed Mahomes, except when it mattered the most, winning the game. So, offensively, the Ravens look really good. Their defense, not as much. But, of course, I'm going to pick the Ravens for this one. Then it's the Chargers at the Panthers for the first time since 2016. As the Panthers won the last 4, the Chargers haven't beaten them since 2004. As the Chargers try to go 2-0, for God, first time in a long time. I don't remember the last time they went 2-0. Meanwhile, the Panthers are trying to avoid 0-2 for the third year in a row. So the Chargers beat the Raiders. They did a very good job defensively, and they ran the ball well. But Herbert was more of like a game manager. He didn't really do much. He needs to do better if they want to actually succeed. Meanwhile, the Panthers, of course, completely shat the bed as they got destroyed 47-10 against the Saints. As Bryce Young continues to suck immensely. Yeah, I'm picking the Chargers for this one. Then a big NFC matchup, as it's the Saints at the Cowboys for the first time since 2018. The Cowboys won the last one. The Saints haven't beaten them since 2019. They haven't won in Arlington since 2012. As the Saints try to go 2-0 for the second year in a row, and the Cowboys are trying to go 2-0 for the second year in a row. So the Saints destroyed the Panthers, and statistically right now are the best team in the league. They have the number 1 offense, and they have the second best defense. Now, of course, that's because you played the Panthers. Now actually play a good team like the Cowboys, and we'll see how well you do. Meanwhile, the Cowboys, they destroyed the Browns, although Dak, of course, just like last year with the Giants, did not impress me that much. He was more like a game manager in that game. But they have one of the best defenses so far. But now we'll see how they do against an actual offense apparently right now. This will be a wild game, but I'm going to pick the Cowboys for this one. Can't trust the Saints since they just beat the Panthers. That's not saying much. And then we get a rematch from the divisional round, just like the wild card rematch for the Lions last week, as it's the Buccaneers at the Lions for the first time since 2020. As the Lions won the last one, the Buccaneers haven't beaten them since 2020, and the Lions haven't beaten the Buccaneers at home since 2014, I believe. So I got that incorrect. Or when the last time the Buccaneers won in Lions, whatever. I'm getting mixed up. Anyways, the Buccaneers are trying to go 2-0 for the 4th year in a row. The Lions are trying to go 2-0 for the first time since 2017. As the Buccaneers had a very impressive victory against the Commanders, and right now Baker is the best quarterback in the league with 4 touchdowns, showing that maybe his streak of after playing good he does bad maybe will be not happen this year, as he looked really good. And the Buccaneers don't look that bad of a team right now. Meanwhile, the Lions had to pull off a comeback victory against the Rams as it was a close game like the wild card game was last year. And remember, this game was also close last year. This will be very interesting to see how they do in the rematch. It was, like I said, it was still very funny. They had the wild card divisional round rematch with the Lions to start off the season. But I'm going to still pick the Lions for this one, but I wouldn't be surprised if the Buccaneers get it. And then we get to an outer conference matchup, as it's the Colts at the Packers for the first time since 2016. The Colts won the last three. The Packers haven't beaten them since 2008. As the Colts try to avoid 0-2 for the first time since 2021, and the Packers try to go 2-0 for the first time since 2020. So the Colts, hard-fought game against the Texans. Richard's first game in almost a year, and he looked really, really good. Very nice to see, as long as he stays healthy. That's the main concern. But their defense, terrible. But then again, when you played the Texans, I guess it's not too much of a surprise. Meanwhile, the Packers lost. Actually, I don't know why I have the Packers. Oh, and no idea how that happened, because they lost their game. So, yeah, trying to avoid 0-2 for the first time since 2006, I believe. But anyways, the Packers lost to the Eagles in Brazil, as they put up a hard-fought game but couldn't get the job done in the end. Now, of course, the big concern is Jordan Love is injured. And I haven't looked up any reports since that Saturday when they first started talking about it, so I have no idea if he's going to play or not. But that is actually going to determine the outcome of this game. If he does play, I'm going to pick the Packers. But if he doesn't play, and oh god, Malik Willis plays, I'm going to pick the Colts for that one. So this one is up in the air. It's going to depend on if Love plays. Alright, so then we get to the next game, as it's the Browns at the Jaguars for the first time since 2020. As the Browns won the last two, the Jaguars haven't beaten them since 2017, and they haven't won at home against them since 2014. So the Browns, of course, got spanked by the Cowboys thanks to no offense. That's what happens when you have Watson as your quarterback. Meanwhile, the Jaguars, they blew it against the Dolphins. They had like a 17-7 lead in the fourth quarter, and they blew it just like that. Ugh. So one of these two teams with winning record last year is going to go to 0-2, and oh boy, not going to look good forever which one it is. But who will I pick? Probably go against my better judgment, but I'm going to pick the Browns because I trust their defense still. But man, watch their offense choke it again. So then we get to the 49ers at the Vikings for the second year in a row, as the Vikings won the last one. The 49ers haven't beaten them since 2021, and they haven't won in Minneapolis. The 49ers haven't won in Minneapolis since 1992. There we go. As the 49ers try to go 2-0 for the second year in a row, as the Vikings are trying to go 2-0 for the first time since, gosh, don't even remember how long it's been either. So anyways, the 49ers, good game against the Jets. Only problem is Turdy Purdy was just a game manager in that results. Meanwhile, the Vikings, how about freaking Sam Darnold having like the best game of his career against the Giants, destroying them, and their defense was elite. But again, it's the Giants. That's not much to say. So yeah, this will be an interesting game. And remember, the 49ers lost to the Vikings last year, but I'm not as convinced yet still that the Vikings are legit. I think that was more just they were playing the Giants. So I'm going to pick the 49ers for this one. But hey, the Vikings did beat them last year, so we can't be surprised if they do it again. Alright, that's the Seahawks at the Patriots for the first time since 2016. As the Seahawks won the last three, the Patriots haven't beaten them since 2008, and they haven't beaten the Seahawks at home since 2004. As, of course, the Seahawks try to go 2-0 for the first time since 2020. Meanwhile, the Patriots are trying to go 2-0 for the first time since 2019. So the Seahawks got a pretty convincing game against the Broncos despite the score being close. Meanwhile, the Patriots, how about that upset? They beat the Bengals on the road. Surprising upset. Insane. As they have one of the best defense in the league too at the moment. But we'll see how they last. Then again, they beat, well, I thought it was going to be an insanely good offense. Now they got to face another one. So we'll see how they do. But I'm going to pick the Seahawks for this one. But I guess now I have to be considering the Patriots. Alright, then it's the Jets at the Titans for the first time since 2018, as the Jets won the last one. The Titans haven't beaten them since 2018, and the Jets haven't won in Nashville since 2014, as the Jets try to avoid 0-2 for the first time since 2022, and the Titans are trying to avoid 0-2 for the first time since 2022. So the Jets' ugly game against the 49ers is Rodgers' first game full-time starting against the Jets. Hey, at least he completed a pass, but he was terrible in that game. Very, very not good. Meanwhile, the Titans, oh my God, they blew it against the Bears. They looked like they were going to win that easily, and then they completely imploded in the fourth quarter as Will Levis sucked, and everything about that team just sucked offensively. I'm going to pick the Jets for this one. So then we get to the Giants at the Commanders. As the Giants won the last 3, the Commanders haven't beaten them since 2021. As the Jets are trying to avoid 0-2 for the first time since 2021, I believe. And the Commanders are trying to avoid 0-2 for the first time since 2019, I believe. So the Giants, of course, got destroyed by the Vikings. Not surprised because Daniel Jones sucks. Meanwhile, the Commanders, first time seeing Jaden Daniels, while they got pretty much spanked by the Buccaneers, and Daniels was a game manager when it came to passing. He ran for 2 touchdowns. So right now, of all the rookie quarterbacks, Jaden Daniels is the best at the moment with his solid stats overall. But yeah, very interesting game between probably 2 of the worst teams in the league. But I'm going to pick the Commanders for this one since I at least trust Daniels so far, 1 game in other than Daniels. And then we get to the 4 p.m. games. Starting off with the Rams at the Cardinals. As the Rams won the last 2, the Cardinals haven't beaten them since 2022, and they haven't beaten the Rams at home since 2014. There we go. As the Rams try to avoid 0-2 for the first time since, gosh, all the way back in 2011, I believe it was. Meanwhile, the Cardinals are trying to avoid 0-2 for the 3rd year in a row. So the Rams, hard-fought game against the Lions, but they just couldn't get the job done as both Stafford and Goff were kind of just mid in that game. Meanwhile, the Cardinals blew it against the Bills as Kyler Murray played okay and good, but they just couldn't get the job done in the end. That was a very impressive job they did against the Bills, but they couldn't get the job done in the end. So, interesting to say about this game. I trust the Rams more, but the Cardinals put up a good fight against the Bills, so maybe they could beat a team that's not as good at home. Interesting to say, but I'm going to pick the Rams for this one, but I wouldn't be surprised if the Cardinals get it. Alright, then it's the Steelers at the Broncos for the first time since 2018. As the Steelers won the last 2, the Broncos haven't beaten them since 2018, and the Steelers haven't won in Denver since 2009 as the Steelers try to go 2-0 for the first time since 2020, and the Broncos are trying to avoid 0-2 for a 2nd year in a row. As the Steelers, classic Steelers game, they beat the Falcons with just defense, of course, as Justin Fields just played like a game manager. Meanwhile, the Broncos did not play very good whatsoever, even though it was a close game against the Seahawks, as Bo Nix sucked, the worst of the rookie quarterbacks so far this year. And yeah, despite the history, I'm going to pick the Steelers for this one. And then it's the Bengals at the Chiefs for the 2nd year in a row, as the Chiefs won the last one. The Bengals haven't beaten them since 2022, and they haven't won in Kansas City since 2012. As the Bengals trying to avoid 0-2 for the 3rd year in a row, as the Chiefs try to go 2-0 for the first time since 2022, as the Bengals' ugly game against the Patriots, one of the worst offenses in the league, as they were destroyed offensively by, I thought it was going to be one of the worst teams in the league. That's embarrassing. That should have been an easy victory for them, because I thought they were going to be a Super Bowl contender. Now they got to face their most recent rival, the Chiefs, who beat the Ravens barely in the kickoff game. Didn't look good for them, but hey, the Bengals played tough, especially last year against the Chiefs without Burrow. So we'll see what happens, because these two have had several close games over the last 3 years, but I'm going to pick the Chiefs for this one. And then we get to Sunday night, a game that should not have been on the list, as it's the Bears at the Texans for the first time since 2016. The Bears have won the last 2. The Texans haven't beaten the Bears since 2016, and the Bears have never beaten the Texans in Houston. As the Bears try to go 2-0 for the first time since 2020, and the Texans are trying to go 2-0 for the first time since 2016. So the Bears' ugly win against the the Titans, they made a big comeback thanks to their defense as Caleb Williams debuted, and he was not very good. Hell, he wasn't even really necessarily good enough to be game manager. Completed less than half his passes, had less than 100 yards. That was a typical Bears quarterback game pretty much. Meanwhile, the Texans, Stroud played very good. That offense looked really good as they held on to beat the Colts in a very close game. So, very impressive job. And, of course, I'm going to pick the Texans for this one. And then we get to Monday night. I don't know how I forgot to update the records. As it's the Falcons at the Eagles for the first time since 2018. As the Eagles won the last one. The Falcons haven't beaten them since 2019. and they haven't won in the Philly since 2012 as the Falcons try to avoid 0-2 for the first time since 2022. Meanwhile, the Eagles are trying to go 2-0 for the third year in a row. So the Falcons, as they lost to the Steelers in a close one, as Kirk Cousins did not play good, not living up to what he's supposed to be. Meanwhile, the Eagles, hard-fought game against the Packers in Brazil, although Hurts threw 2 picks. That's not very good and all that, but I'm going to pick the Eagles, of course, for this one. And those are my picks for Week 2. I cannot wait for Bills at Dolphins tonight. And, of course, link to Twitch Prime will be in the description if you want to check out the game with me. So, anyways, my picks are the Dolphins over the Bills, the Ravens over the Raiders, the Chargers over the Panthers, the Cowboys over the Saints, the Lions over the Buccaneers. And it's going to depend on if Love plays. If Love plays, I'm going to pick the Packers. But if he doesn't play, I'm going to pick the Colts. The Browns over the Jaguars, the 49ers over the Vikings, the Seahawks over the Patriots, the Jets over the Titans, the Commanders over the Giants, the Rams over the Cardinals, the Steelers over the Broncos, the Chiefs over the Bengals, the Texans over the Bears, and the Eagles over the Falcons. All right, so see you all for Week 3.